All right, everybody, we should be live. Welcome to the weekly Strength Club Q&A. We have two starting strength coaches here. That's Chase Lindley at the bottom. I'm Alex Kosari. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. But basically what we do here is we go through a lot of starting strengths content, things that we think we need to kind of elaborate on or a little flesh out a little bit easier in a video format. That way you guys can watch this, get a clean take-home message, and go about your training without having to read a lot of pretty dense textbooks. Chase at the bottom, how you doing, man?
Doing good. How are you, Alex?
Um, You're so formal as soon as these things start.
I
It's
know
very
I am.
relaxed. As soon as we start, it's just very hoity-toity. But you were just at the seminar recently, right? Was that last weekend, 2 weekends ago?
Uh, it was the 13th through the 15th, so I guess that was last weekend.
Okay, how'd that go,
Um,
man?
it was good. This was my third time staffing. I'm getting better at it. I actually have a weird fear of talking, so this is kind of like going into extremes that I need to work on, but it's fun,
Yeah.
man. I love the seminars. I love meeting new people and just kind of, it's a madhouse, man. It's 3 days of just jam-packed information,
hmm
coaching. It's a sensory overload. It's all of it, man, and I love it.
Yeah, they're really great. I'm excited to go to the next one. That's probably going to be, I think, December for me, maybe a little bit afterwards.
Awesome.
But yeah, so the breakdown for what's it called for the seminars? There's like 6 hour, 4 to 6 hours of lecture Friday night, right?
So the three lectures is basically it's coaching, right? So the kind of like our first methodology principles of coaching. Why are we thinking about this? Why are we even kind of considering the hard sciences that we work with?
Yeah.
And then after that, it's Rip's lecture about strength. So kind of going into a little bit of the physics aspect, and then kind of just some parameters that most of the time people will overlook, especially like the people in the physical education department. And
Yeah.
lastly,
Yeah,
and
the
lastly is the
exercise.
hardcore. Lastly is the hardcore physics lecture of moment arms, the forces of gravity that operate as we lift with barbells.
Yeah, basically why we analyze the lifts the way we do, and then they go over on the day on Saturday. That's the longest day. What we have: squat, bench,
Hmm.
deadlift, or does it go squat, deadlift, bench? I forget.
Squat, deadlift, bench.
Squat,
So
deadlift,
it's
bench. Yep.
it's squats. So it's a squat lecture. Basically, it ties in with like the three criteria as well,
Yeah.
and kind of how we digress into like the lifts that we're going to go into. After that, it's the squat platform. So you go out and you lift. After that, it's lunch, of course. And then it's a pulling lecture where we sit down, we look at videos of not only
hmm
just pulls, but a little bit of the squats, what we were talking about previous, and kind of talking about how, like, we're not cherry picking shit. We're not just making stuff up.
Yeah.
Everyone squats the way we want to, from Ed Cohen to just your mom and dad, just anyone, right?
hmm
The reason why we developed this is it's because of the science and stuff. Bench, it's pretty short. I actually gave the
No,
bench
you did the
lecture.
bench lecture. Okay.
Yeah, so
You were
it
just
wasn't
flexing
bad.
your pecs the entire time, just bouncing them
Yeah,
up
I
and
was just
down,
kind of like popping them up
just
and
pop
down
that
like
up.
Terry
Yeah.
Crews. Yep. And then that's the last one. So everyone's like, it's a bench. Let's hurry up and rush through it. So I kind of had the easy lecture to
Oh,
give.
good. Okay, gotcha. Yes, and then so we do the three big lifts, the cool powerlifting lifts on day one,
Hmm.
or day two, I suppose. Sunday we got the press and the power clean. Right, goes power clean then press.
Hmm.
Yep. Yeah,
And since
that's the shit test day for coaching on the platform for sure. Yeah, if you think
I think it's the squat, dude. It's
you think it's
like
the squat.
it's nut
Oh,
cutting time as soon as you step on the platform, dude.
okay.
Because like the as I'm the scav coach and people who are opting in, I don't say a word. I'm just kind of giving them the stank eye the whole entire time, and they are just crumbling underneath the pressure, unless
Oh
they've done
man.
this before. And yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of
We'll have to talk about that more. Jimmy Pack in the
yeah.
chat. How's it going, Jimmy? But yeah. The for me the squat was the easiest one actually. I could do that 4 times over in my sleep. That was
Yeah.
startling though the first time. Phil Meggers was just like, "Yeah, go, man." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, really? Okay."
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, I can do whatever I want." Nice. Um, all right, so this time we're going to be going over how to save time at the gym, and then form checks. This topic isn't too long, especially on the NLP, about how to figure out how to save time. And then we have a few videos to rip through. Chase, saving time at the gym kind of implies that people take too long there. All of your training slots at the starting strength gyms are how long?
90 minutes. So we
90
don't
minutes
have.
flat.
Yep. So we don't have all day to, do like a 5x5 or kind of like the extravagant programs that a lot of people have lost countless number of minutes doing.
Yeah. Social medias first. We have Chase at Chase Lindley, and then his backup account, Chase_Lindley. Give those guys a follow. Chase does online coaching, so reach out to him if you want that. And then if you do in-person coaching, where are you located at, Chase?
Starting strength, Oklahoma City. I forgot the actual address, but we are real close to Moore, Oklahoma. Still in
Mm-hmm.
technically Oklahoma City, just real south of it. Come by and see us, and yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk shit. You guys can arm wrestle if you want. I do online coaching though. I'm getting very full. I may have to start a wait list soon or kind of switch up how I'm doing this. But you can find me at acostrength.com. If you need help with programming, pain and injury, any of that stuff, reach out. Give me a shout. I'm more than happy to help out. If you want videos to get on the show, reach out to support@strength.club. That's Mick's email if you want to say hi to Mick. If you're a longtime viewer, you'll remember him. He doesn't like to pop around too much now. He's very shy. I think he's embarrassed about the way his face looks. But yeah, you can email videos there. We will review them on the show sooner or later. So that's for certain. That's what we'll be doing in the second half of the show. But I suppose we will move on now. Yeah, so the topics that we want to talk about is like the usual or standard training time in the LP. Does it normally take people 2 hours? Normally take people 60 minutes. We'll go into the usual wasted time sinks or like where people are like losing a lot of time to, where they are wasting time. Then we'll go over like the easiest changes that someone can make, and then we'll go into kind of more advanced strategies, which is going to be like a lot of supersetting things. And then finally, I suppose we'll answer the question, which is an important one: when do you actually need more time? Right, which is a harder question to answer than I think most people will give it credit for.
Mm.
I would say the other videos, the other kind of lecture videos that we have about when to end the LP, and then I want to say we did another programming one. That's honestly going to tell you more about when you need more time than anything. But all right, we'll get going with this one. Okay. So Chase, I wrote these down. I'm not sure if you agree with these guys or not. This is how I would say like a normal flow for, let's say, someone's LP training session goes. So like at the start of their LP, it's going to take the values on the left. Towards the end of the LP, it's going to take the values on the right. How do you feel about these, man? You see a lot of people doing this programming.
Yeah, I agree. From the time that they take a bar out of the rack and place it in there and they get their warm ups going, day one, super quick. Even after like my initial intro with them, it's probably because we're dealing with weights that are relatively light.
Mm-hmm.
The number of warm ups, one or two sets at the most, and
Yeah.
and the majority of that is the empty bar. So the squat it's real fast at the start. Press
Mm-hmm.
and bench again real fast, and deadlift too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like all these start times. These
Yeah.
are great. And then yeah,
Yeah.
the clean it spends a lot of time
It's
because
long.
we
A lot of
talk about it a
sets.
lot, right? It's a lot
Yeah.
of
Exactly.
talking about it and queuing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got some more people in the chat. Last week, chat was not working for some reason. I always said we had like 0, even though people were typing messages. So if you're in the chat, man, yeah, a dude, very, very true. Time waster, a
That's a very
phone.
big one.
Yeah, man, I've started just like completely leaving the phone in the gym bag. There's a radio playing. That's good enough for me. But yeah, if you're in the chat, sound off. That'd be cool. Last week we had some technical difficulties thanks to Big Brother YouTube. But yeah, so like if you have a coach with you, everything on your first day takes longer. Oh, Brian, man. Hey, Brian Althouse, the Althouse of Gains. It's your boy. Hey, man, I haven't heard from you in a while. I got to message Brian. But yeah, so all the values in the lift, they're going to take a little bit longer because you're going to be coached. So it's like what Chase was saying, the squat, to get to your working sets, it may be 2 empty bar sets. That doesn't actually take 20 minutes, but there's a lot of talking. And then
Mhm.
by the end of it, there's way less talking, there's way less coaching going on, right? And that's when you're basically working for like the entire 30 minutes, right? We got a few more people in here, but we got Nate Hanafe. Hanafi? Is that Hanafi or Hanafe? What do you think?
I like the or the
Hanafi?
previous in this. Yeah, that sounds more extravagant.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. And then MJDC in the chat too. How's it going, man? You guys send in some more bench videos, man. You should be benching 275 by now, I think. Last time we saw, what, 245, 35, something like that?
Yeah.
Easy 315 for instead of 5, of course. But yeah, so I would say that the big thing is that the squat kind of incorporates a general warm up too. So like if you're going into your garage gym in like the middle of December, that's going to be a general warm up plus your technical squatting warm up, right? So the squat warm up is kind of like a little bit. It can be longer, right? Because he sent a 195 bench video, MJDC. Okay, cool. Yeah, I remember there was a deloaded video. We got to check that one out then. I'll check the backlog. But yeah, so the squat can kind of include a general warm up because like some people may need 5 to 10 minutes to warm up, like just on the treadmill, on the rower, whatever you need done. But Chase, you'd agree with these values for the most part?
I do.
Okay.
And it's so funny because we have a clock in the main room that I always kind of watch. And my part of my job is kind of ushering people along and making sure that I'm basically their human timer, right? A lot of people kind of procrastinate, right? They'll kind of, oh man, that set was really heavy. I'm gonna kind of
Yeah.
not set. Man, we have timers, so they don't set it. So they
Should be
kind
on
of get,
every rack, right?
yeah, and they have one on every rack, and we were really adamant about that. But the majority of the time, if it's stuff is really getting heavy, they kind of just leave the timer alone. They kind of go into this
Yeah.
different realm, and they're kind of
Yeah.
really, asking themselves, why am I doing this? Having this internal
Yeah,
struggle, and
point four and point two here are pretty related.
yeah.
Jay, he said great timing. He just did an hour workout that was an hour and 45 minutes. Tell us how many sets you did, man. I'm interested to hear what your actual volume was for that day. But yeah, so we'll go through in descending order for this one. Social media, that is as self-explanatory as it is. You will go down a rabbit hole.
Yep.
I've been on YouTube, like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna find a nice 2-minute YouTube video to watch, and then I end up looking for one for 4 minutes, watching it for 2 minutes, and then I get ready for my set. Um, yeah, I think social media, unless you like really, really need it for whatever reason, just don't have it. Like if you start your music playlist, that's one thing that I tell all my guys to do is like start your playlist, right? If and then just go put your phone in the locker or like let's say on a
Mhm.
different table 20 feet away from you, and then do your workout by yourself. Like you can have the music in, but don't have the phone. Do you have a lot of phone time at the SS gyms, man?
In class, no,
Okay,
because
good.
if we have like kind of that outcast, it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't work well with the class, right? We want to be synergistic. We want
Right.
everyone to kind of be involved. So no, we'll talk, and I kind of again make it my priority to kind of really talk and bring out some kind of personality in the people, and then as people get more and more into the gym, they'll kind of talk, they'll cheer each other on, and then kind of have this social connection and stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
phones are. I mean, hell, everyone kind of sees this whenever you go out and. It's like the couple who both are on their phones, and it's like, why did y'all even go out? You're not going to
Yeah.
talk. Yeah, and just basically
Yeah.
put them in a squat rack, and that's what happens.
Okay, yeah. So, all right. So Jay just said he did the standard 3x5 followed by a 1x5, and that took him about an hour and 45 minutes. That's a tremendously long time. And then Phil, he said that's around my time too, and his rest period's around 7 minutes. So we'll talk about rest periods after this. Social media, that's pretty self-explanatory. The next thing I would like to say is just not using rest timer at all. So I think people expect for these workouts because they'll get like the first 2 months and they'll think it's supposed to feel that easy continually, and then they will try to rest to capture that feeling again, and that's not how it works, right? So like unless you have the liberty of having a crap ton of time, you're going to go into your subsequent or follow-up sets feeling more and more tired, right? And then eventually, like if you're really pressed for time and you have 25 minutes to work out and you're supersetting 2 barbell movements, you're going to be huffing and puffing the entire time. But that's what you have to do because you only have 25 minutes to train, right? So like not using a rest timer, that's a huge one. Like really use it,
Yep.
even if you have the watch on, it's different, right? Because that relies on you watching it. Like, okay, it's 7:25. I'm going to go again at 7:28. It's not as reliable. Use an actual timer. Plus, it helps with cooking as well. So I don't think everyone times their cooking stuff enough. I really like timing and temperature. That's it. Next one, talking with the boys, with the lads. Is that a socializing? I'm sure that eats up so much time for you guys, right?
It does, especially
Yeah,
as we get like, we have some of those clients who are like, man, let's talk about some extravagant stuff and kind of go into like, it's again another rabbit hole, like you were saying.
yeah.
And then as you look up, it's like, fuck, man, 10 minutes has passed by.
We need to stop talking about politics for a while,
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
exactly it. Yeah, talking with the boys. So having a training partner is different than having friends in the gym. A good training partner will very much so keep you to your shit and expect you to like hold you to that or hold them to that same standard, right? So they're
Mhm.
making sure you're not ending sets early. They're making sure you're putting the appropriate amount of weight on the bar. They're not necessarily a coach. It's just kind of like accountability and someone pushing the pace. Like if you've ever done a sport, it's so helpful to do an individual sport with another reliable person because they'll push that pace for you. And then this one, it's a little bit of a different one. It's getting like hyped up or psyching up a little bit too much, because it can eat a lot of time. So, like, let's say that your rest timer goes off, it's been 3 minutes, right? And then you have to do like a 90-second, let's say 45 to 60-second ritual to unrack the bar because it's really heavy, right? You're grabbing it, you're getting your grip, you're shaking it a little bit, you're kind of nodding your head and feeling music, whatever it is. That can eat up kind of a lot of time. So, let's say if you have like a 12-set workout and then that for that ritual takes 45 seconds to a minute each time, right? That's another 12 minutes down the drain. And especially if you have to get so hyped up for a set that after the set, it's like another minute before you start the rest timer, like Chase was saying, that's just time that you're just losing and
Yeah.
losing and losing. Chase, how many of your like normal working sets are you kind of getting really amped up for, do you think? Do you like your guys to get really psyched up or amped up?
I mean, if it's something big, of course, right? I'm not going to stop
Yeah.
you. I'm going to let everything that you can possibly do to help you
Hmm.
achieve this. But I mean, if it's like a normal routine, like a 3x5, 4x5, kind of doing some volume sets, you don't need to be pacing the floor. You don't need to be drooling from the mouth. It's just walk up there, get your belt on and let's go. Like, it's just put in the work. Um,
Yeah.
but if it's, again, kind of singles, the first one, yes, I'm okay with you being psyched up, but then you know what the weight is. You're kind of prepared. It's again doing the work now. You don't
Hmm.
really have to get really amped up as you did in that first single, or even the triple, or it's just something that we're doing the intensity wise. A lot of it is you're becoming too reliant on it, and one day if you don't do that, let's say if you're at another
Yeah.
gym and that screws you up, what are you going to do? That affects the whole entire workout.
Exactly. Like so many responses to these things are like, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
You got to keep going with it. So it's just like getting hyped up, psyched up. It's really helpful if you are making those big attempts where you like need it, but you shouldn't actually need it that much if your programming is more or less more correct. So if you have to if you're getting hyped up for, let's say, 8 working sets out of 12 that you do on, like, let's say, the bench per week, good luck benching that way for 52 weeks out of the year.
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
you are
You're
going to
going to
be
lose interest.
you're going to
Yeah,
be shot. Yeah, that's the big risk too. You could like literally lose interest because of the emotional toll it takes on you.
yeah.
So like I'll have a lot of sessions where it's just like no music at all, no hype, no training partner with me. It's just me, really casual. It's that's a pretty good helpful reset, because it's just like you want to be able to save that card for when you need it, really. So getting hyped up and psyching up, that can eat a lot of time. So yeah, so I would say like the highest return on investment changes, ROI, return on investment, there is honestly just shortening the warm-ups in general. Like if, let's say, if you normally, after, let's say, for the bench, if you take 5 minutes, try to sit down to 3. If your standard rest time is 5 minutes and then you go into your set feeling incredibly prepared, maybe take that down. How do you start to address warm up rest times and then rest periods for your lifters, Chase?
What we tell people is, let's say we're going to a working set of 135 today on the squat. The time it takes you to go, let's say, from the empty bar to your first warm up set of 65 or 95, the time that you go from that weight tree to coming back, putting the plates in the bar, that's as much rest as you need in between warm up sets. The thing about warm up sets is that you need to be warm, right? And there's no need for you to. I hate whenever people do this. Is like they'll set a timer
Yeah,
for 1 minute or so. It's like you're cooling
you
off.
don't need
Don't
that.
do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's get your shit done. And then what I tell people again, from your last warm up to your first working set is about 2 or 3 minutes, right? Depending on how heavy it is, and kind of what we were talking about with that pre-ritual stuff and kind of getting
Hmm.
hyped up and stuff. No longer than 3.
So, Chase, when we say warm up, what does that literally mean? Like, what is the purpose of a warm up, and why do we use the word warm?
So it's technically meaning that you're getting your body prepared to do the movement pattern that it's associated with. So we're not going to do like a bunch of lunges. We're not going to do a bunch of like yes, no movements with our legs to get our adductors warm.
Hmm.
It's doing the movement pattern to get us warmed and our muscles primed, essentially, to lift these heavier weights.
Yeah, so temperature has a lot to do with that priming. So, like when we say warm up, we literally mean warm up. So you
Mm,
should be moving nearly constantly. So it's like, hey, go take a barbell out into the middle of winter in January, and then try to warm up for your deadlift. You will have a much worse time than if you're doing it in the middle of summer and it's 80 degrees, right?
yep.
So even if we dislike a warm gym because you're sweating, that is quite helpful, right? So it's like the fluid viscosity between all of your bursa, between all of your joints, it literally changes as you are getting warmer, right? And there's probably some exercise science voodoo about like motor unit recruitment in relationship to temperature, about like how fast
Yeah.
things are moving around certain clefts. Um, but uh, but yeah, so literally, we want you to be warm. That means moving around, right? So it's not like you're not priming yourself for peak force production in your first 4 or 5 sets of warm up, right? So it's like even if you're squatting 365 for the day, squatting 45 pounds to get warm, that isn't you displaying your peak force production. It's not. It's literally getting everything, the tissues physically prepared for your work. Theodore asked an interesting question here. He said, supersetting warm ups, doesn't that limit your working sets? Chase, what do you think?
So the time it takes you to do, again, from warm up to warm up, no. But if the total number of reps you're doing on your warm ups, if let's say you're doing fives all the way up until your working sets, that's going to affect it. What we have people is we have them do titrating down on their number of reps as they get closer to their working sets. So let's say, again, we're that scenario of that 135-pound squat. Their last warm up is going to be a single at 115. So that way they're not totally gassed, but again, it's relatively heavy enough to where they are primed and ready to go into a 135-pound squat.
Yeah. So I think that Chase's response was good in terms of pacing the general one. I think Theodore's question was more like, when you're doing your squat, can you warm up for your bench and things like
Gotcha.
that sort of supersetting warm-ups? If you're in really bad shape, it will, yes. The goal is for you to not be in bad shape. So there you go. So it's like, let's say that if you are deadlifting 200 kilos and then you're squatting 150, would I recommend taking out your last deadlift single before your working set at like 165, right before your third working bench set, right? Or squat set or whatever, what have you? No. But you don't need to organize it like that. So like how you intentionally organize your training is on you, right? So when we say supersetting warm-ups, that doesn't mean your last warm-up has to fall into the working sets. Because Chase, okay, so let's say Chase, you're squatting a working set at 550 for 5. How many sets of warm-up are you doing?
At least 5. So we go 135, 225, 315, 405, 495.
You do anything with the empty bar beforehand?
Oh yeah, so I guess probably about six sets.
6. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so like on a good day when Chase is feeling athletic and primed, it's 6 sets. Could he do that those first 3 or 4 working sets while he's also benching? Probably.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. Would I recommend him doing the last 3? Definitely not. But it's kind of the thing. What are you going to do in terms of time? And then the next thing is load management. So it's like if someone's like, "Hey, I only have 45 minutes to train," you're not going to put the heaviest weight on the bar that you can. You only have 45 minutes, right? So you got to get some amount of work in there to make it actually tangible or a normal training session. Because otherwise, you just go in, do the heaviest single you can in 45 minutes, and then leave. So Chase, what do you start doing? Like if someone comes in and they're like, "Listen, man, this week is crazy for me. I can only get in the gym 45 minutes 2 times."
What we're kind of doing is we're trying not to let them detrain, right?
Yep.
What I have them do is this: if we're still running an LP, is still 5 pounds heavier, but we'll go just do a top set and everything. If it's 315 on the squat, 365 on the deadlift. Deadlifts are usually fine because again we only do one set.
Yeah.
We can crank out a top set on everything in under 45 minutes. If a guy is really ushered along and really pushed, he'll be fine. And then the next time he's in, we could probably even go up 5 depending on the trainee. We can go up 5 and hit 3 sets across and it'll be fine.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just like how many sets you're doing, how many reps you're doing, all of that's load management. Those are the choices that you need to be making. So it's just like if you were planning on increasing weight for all 3 sets of 5, you can do like Chase said, increase it on just the first set, right? And then let's say you're going faster than you thought, maybe add in a backup set, if you have the time for it. And then time goals. I don't know if you do this one, Chase, but I really like to do this wherever things are easier. So like, let's say if someone has a light squat day, I'm like, hey, you have 4 sets of light squats to do or 3 sets. You need to get that done in under, we'll have them do the first session, see how long it takes them. It may take them, 15 minutes to do other light squats. So be like, okay, next week, do that in 14 minutes. Next week, do that in 13 minutes, right? So you can start slipping in a little bit of conditioning. And you can do that with like chin-ups too. You can do that with whatever their light movements are. So like say someone's doing volume pressing and it's just not that heavy yet. Their volume work is at, like 115. That doesn't need that much rest. It's a 115 press. You can call the rest times on those. So, for this one, Chase, this last point, I'm interested to hear your take. Reducing rest times versus increasing load. How do you feel about it?
Man, there does come a time where it does get heavy, and man, I've seen people as they get closer to the end of their novice learner progression, they're waiting 7-8 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, they probably can rest 5 or 6, right? Um, the time it takes you from the first set to the second set is always going to be shorter than from the second to third, right? So kind of manage that again. Just kind of keep that in mind. And again, you could probably go 5 minutes even at the later end of the novice and the progression. And then what I like to do is if you're still feeling tired, just kick it back a minute. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
more. Again, just kind of keep your confinements arranged in the sense that you're not going too crazy with the amount of time you're spending,
Yeah.
and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Because it's like, how much more gas are you getting? Let's say, because like when you're doing the novice LP, you're really not that strong, right? So like, let's say
Yeah,
that if someone squatted 405 for 15, they would need a ton of rest. They have just used so many cellular level resources that they physically need 10, 12 minutes to recover. Chase, what's going on?
I think Phoebe is blending something. I'm going to close the door.
Mute your mic, man, or something like that.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so she's making some shakes for everybody. But yeah, so like if you're using big weights and you're a bigger person, the amount of rest time you need is going to be larger, right? So Chase is going to need relatively more rest time than someone who is 120 pounds, right? Even that weight may be the same similar intensity for each other, but just the size of the load moved and how far it's being moved can really help determine the level of resources that are needed to move it. So like what Chase was saying, it's really important, your rest level for the first set to the second set, maybe 3 minutes. Then for the second set to the third set, it may be 4. It doesn't have to be 7-7 across, right? It's okay to be tired going into your set. If you think that you're tired, but you can still do it and then be technical in doing it, that's enough rest. It doesn't have to feel great.
Yep.
So that's a super important thing, because I think all the guys who end up taking 7 to 10 minute rests, after minute 5, they're just like, I don't know, they're just kind of twiddling their thumbs, really.
Yeah, it's just
They're
like
just
they
like,
go
"Oh,
over there, they punch in the clock, and then they sit down, whip out their
yeah.
phone, or they just kind of kick back and relax. It's like, no, man. You again, like what you were saying, is they're usually fine by after the 4 minutes.
hmm And that's a pretty contentious point. A lot of people think that those longer rest times will do something for you. In my history, they don't do as much as they're worth, right? But then that's the next question: is like, how much is your time worth? If it's an easy Sunday training, it's like Sunday afternoon training session, you have nowhere to be. Take whatever rest times you want. Like, I don't care. But if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of time to train, it's really important to expedite all that so you get your work in. All right, we're going to switch formats here. Let's try that one. Okay, cool. So this is how I tend to organize people's working sets for their LP if they don't have a lot of time. Most people don't tend to have a lot of time, right? So during their last, let's say, honestly, all of their working sets for squatting, they will start warming up for the bench. Okay, those can be empty bar sets for technicality. They can be 95 pounds, 135 if they're stronger, and that's still an easy warm up for them. So, like, let's say that you're a benching 185 for your top sets. You really don't need that much rest for 45 pounds, 95, 115, 135, 155. You don't need that much rest for them. So what you can do is you can do your squat and then take 60 seconds and then go over to do the bench, right? But then after the bench, that's when you take your 2 minutes. That's when you take your 3 minutes, right? So you can basically, by the time you're done with your squat, have one more warm up for technical purposes. Like, do that last single. If you're doing benching 185, do your last single at, let's say, 165. And then as soon as that single's done, start your working sets. And then you can do the same thing for the pull, right? And I would say that you can get away with it more with the deadlift than you can with the squat, because like the squat is just freaking tiring, right? Because you
Right.
have both, you're controlling the eccentric portion
Yep.
and the concentric portion. It's not just the up part. So with the deadlift, for example, you can really do a good portion of your deadlift warm up during your upper body movement, because the upper body movement's just not that tiring, but also the deadlift warm ups really aren't that tiring either. So many guys are like, man, I don't want to stop at 185. I just go 135, 225, then my working set at 275 or something like that. But what you can do is you can get more deadlift practice in, a little bit more volume in, just stop and do those during that. And then for the chin ups, like if there's, let's say if we stopped doing heavy bench pressing, or like your bench pressing warm ups on your last 3 working squat sets, right? You're working 3 squat sets. You can probably do 1 chin up set in there, right? And you can probably do 1 chin up set during your bench, and you can probably do 1 chin up set during your deadlift warm ups, right? Because you'll notice the chin ups don't extend all the way to the end of the deadlift because your hands are going to get fatigued. So what you can do is just sprinkle all that stuff in. That way, instead of having it be squat, all of your squatting, and then all of your benching, then all of your deadlifting, then all of your chin-ups, that can take a long time. What you can do is really condense all of those. But what this means, though, is that you need more barbells.
Yeah.
So one of my home gym guys, I'll tell them to get 2 barbells specifically for this purpose. But if you're in a public gym, you just kind of have to be a weenie about it and then hog up time.
Yeah.
Chase, how do you feel about this? We didn't talk about this beforehand, so I think this is the first time Chase is seeing me talk about this.
No, man, I was actually going to mention this looks very similar to the article that Rip wrote about this.
He wrote an article
yeah,
about this?
yeah. I think I forgot the article's name, but this looks very similar where he's talking about basically the second warm-ups or the second work set of each exercise you're doing. You're basically starting the warm-up progression of another one.
I don't know. He's always ahead of the.
Oh, dude, it is.
That's why
writing it's so hard, like writing articles, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna write this, and you look back to like,
yeah, because it's like I've never conversed with Rip about those things. You just kind of come to the same conclusions given enough time. Yep. That's really funny. I got to find that article, man.
Yeah, it's just like you were putting it. Yeah, and you brought up a good point with the barbell stuff. Like guys who are working out at commercial gyms, it's going to be really fucking hard to do this. Mm-hmm. But this is where those previous things that we were talking about, having a timer, cutting out all the extra bullshit, is really going to come into play.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like in terms of highest return on investment, the timer, cutting down your bullshit, that's huge. I'll have a lot of people who will tell me, like, listen, for the next 2 months, I can only train for 60 minutes. That includes like putting my shoes on to walking out of the gym, 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's not that much time, and then we'll have to do a lot of these kind of advanced tomfoolery to get that stuff done. But like Chase is saying, like most people can get away with really just, cutting out most of the fluff. Like I'd be interested, like Phil and Jay, to hear like exactly what you're spending your time on in those 7 minutes.
And also it's what are you warming up, right? Like let's say you've just done squats and you're kind of going into the progression with the bench. Even though yes, the squat is more of a lower body exercise, I still feel partly warm. My whole entire body does going into the bench. So you don't have to do a complete empty bar to 5 or 6 warm-up sets how you normally would if you were mm-hmm. regularly starting out with the bench. So kind of watch how let's say if you're a typical guy who's going to 225 on the bench, it's like 65, 95, 135, 155, 185, 205, and 225. You can cut out like at least 3 of those warm-up mm-hmm. sets and you'll be totally fine.
Absolutely. And that's a good point. Like Chase is saying about the squats and the shoulders. Chase, when you're squatting, what are your shoulders doing?
Oh, they are stretching. They are doing a phenomenal stretch.
Yeah, they are trying their best is what they're doing. They are filled with blood. They are really flush with it. So it's like a lot of people, if you'll notice it in kind of like the weird meme world of fitness, they'll be like, oh, you have to do so many like band pull aparts. You got to do a bunch of external rotation stuff. You got to do all the Wim-Wams with your arms for absolutely no reason. If you just put in another exercise before that strategically placed, it can do a significant portion of that work to warm your upper back up. So if I'm not squatting before I bench, I'll still do some upper back warm up just so I can really squeeze into an arch, probably just like some chin ups or some rows or something like that. But the squat really does that for you too.
Yep.
Like if you think that whenever Chase is squatting, 550, that his shoulders are just like limp and flaccid, like what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like they are contracted as hard as they possibly can. And that's a really good way to warm things up is really hard isometric contractions. So like the bench, for example, you can cut out a good bit of that warm up because you're physically warm from your squats. And that brings up another good point, which I didn't think about. So Chase, thank you for that, is that, if you shorten the period of time that you're benching, right, your squat will be closer to your deadlift. You will still be more warm, right? So if your deadlift, if you cut your benching time down from 30 minutes to like, let's say 16 minutes, 18 minutes, you're that much closer to your squat, and then that means that you're going to be more warm from squatting than you will be for deadlifting, right?
Yeah, I usually have everyone in the gym do like if on their deadlifts, we usually make them do a set of 5 with their deadlifts. I like to cut it down to 3s. And mm-hmm. they kind of look at me like, dude, no, I need the extra warm-ups. No.
Nah.
Squatted like 15 or 7 minutes ago. Like it's not that far away. Like you're
exactly. Fine. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's another concept about the bench. Like if the person is using a lot of like, not to say active leg drive, but like you should be passively supporting your entire body plus the bar during the bench press, right? So it's like I've had a lot of guys get hamstring cramps and quad cramps during the bench press. that tells me they're doing a good job with bracing their legs,
Yeah.
or they're
Yep.
just really trying to. So like, the legs are still being flushed with blood. They're still doing things. You can pump out a few body weight squats or 135-pound deadlifts. Like even if, let's say, if you don't follow a traditional warm up and like through all of your bench working sets, you just deadlift 135 for 5 in between those benching sets. When you go to your actual deadlift time, you can probably just go straight to 275, maybe go
Yep.
straight to 315, depending on how advanced of an athlete you are. You'll learn these things over time. But anything else on warm up, Chase, that you want to cover?
Can't really think of anything.
Yeah,
I think that all that was pretty good. If anybody has any questions, just let us know in the chat.
toss it
Otherwise,
in.
yeah.
Yeah, Brian said I love a good flaccid shoulder. I like that, man. That's good. I think everybody does. That's why my delts are so small. So they're just permanently flaccid. But yeah, so we covered how to kind of make these workouts conceptually a little bit shorter by supersetting the warm ups. We covered the highest ROI changes you could make. We covered what the biggest time wasters are. Please get off of social media; it's killing all of us. And then we covered kind of the standard training times for all these things, right? And so I don't think anything else to cover, Chase. We can get on to form checks.
Yeah, I can kind of throw in 2 cents here. Like this is kind of for the more advanced people. Like let's say, for me, typically, like I'm doing a bunch of pulls, Olympic stuff right before my actual like heavy pulls. Like I'm not going to basically start real light on my deadlifts because I've already been cleaning, 275 or 315. So I can literally just jump into like 405 on my deadlift warm ups and be totally fine.
Yeah. So if you're cool, there you go. That's another point I completely forgot to mention. Damn, Chase,
I'm on
that's why
fire, dude.
you're on fire today, man. All right, so we're gonna start sharing some videos here too. We'll find our boy here. This gentleman's name was Chase Fearon, and I think he had this username before Chase you started this whole thing. So I don't think he
I'm curious,
copied
is he
you.
like a fearing of Chase or is he? I don't
I'm not sure.
understand.
I'm not sure, but yeah, there's our boy Chase Fearon going on right now. But yeah, so he's squatting in the rep garage gym. Toe angle's a little bit shallow. If you can kind of peep at his toe angle right here, his toes
Mhm.
are pretty pointed straight forward. Oh man, okay, we
Awesome.
got some squats.
Yeah, this is the typical initiate the leaning over by dragging up the elbows and just kind of caving over.
Mm-hmm.
Bend at the hips, man. Send your ass back and bend the knees as well. So as you go down, hips and knees bend at the same time. And then Alex was pointing out this earlier. Shove out the toe angle. I wouldn't use that little strip of tape. I think this is kind of throwing you off. Unless it's like sealing something, just throw it away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So I think a lot of people think that if their feet are slightly askew, their whole body will like not rotate as well. Like
Mhm.
so, you're not really that paying attention or that closely paying attention to like the frame of reference in front of you. So if one of your feet is like an inch behind you, but your toe angle's the same, your whole body will just rotate. It would be very weird if you kept like a very rigid rotation with your upper body, like if you kept that perfectly straight and then twisted your feet. It doesn't happen. So don't worry about too much about the front of your feet. But yeah, man. So I would say, I've been having to use this more and more often. Think about keeping your head and chest as far away from the ground as you possibly can. Because right now you are dive bombing your
Mhm.
nose to the ground. Think about keeping everything up, right, really, really tight, right, and then you can shove your stomach down to the floor, shove your hips down, like you're getting the depth and everything, but you're leaning over way too excessively. It should almost look like a Mike Myers style elevator gag, like you're just descending. Like it should look like your upper body is just magically lowering, and no one can tell why. Right. If there's a lot of drama going on and you're like throwing your head around all over the place and pitching your chest down, it's not going to work whenever it's too heavy. Chase, what are some of your favorite cues to get people to stop moving their head and chest like this?
Usually I like to fix the eye gaze. That old adage of where your eyes go, your chest will follow. It's very true. It's a truism,
Mm-hmm.
man. So I kick out the gaze a lot for people. For like this guy, for instance, I'd look out where like I guess that's his bench or like kind of that little leg is by his toolbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kick it out there.
Yeah. So like right now, for example, he's looking at that spot, right? And then I'll try and pause this right at the bottom. I'll try and pause. So where is
It's
he
like
looking now? We can like
almost right at
exactly.
the tape.
Exactly. Yeah, we can look at his glasses is like a good proxy line for where his eyeballs are going, right? And he's going straight down, but he's at depth, so like salute, good for you,
Yeah,
man. But if you keep your gaze out there, you'll have a better time with the head, man. But yeah, these are solid.
at
I've been
least you can tell
seeing,
it. squat. It's broken, but it's still a squat.
Yeah, it's something, man. It's something. But yeah, okay, all right, Chase. Thank you very much for that one. Pull up another video. Do you want to sing any sweet serenades for us while I find another video?
I was listening to Plush by Stone Temple Pilots because it was on while we were walking
There you
Garm,
go.
and I started singing at the top of my lungs, and Phoebe looked at me like I was an idiot. Doesn't
There you go.
understand, man. She doesn't understand.
She doesn't understand that you're an idiot, but in the correct way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. We have a Kyle 5026 here, 5216 here. He submitted a priority form check in through the app, and I wanted Chase to take another look at this. Because he had gotten some coaching from someone in his gym who had been doing like powerlifting or something like that before, and he's also trying to reconcile some of those things with the starting strength model. And I've seen him post in some Facebook groups and everything like that. So he's struggle busting a little bit. But take a look at these. Let me know what you think.
Kyle, man, I would see if at first if you can get your grip a little bit settled. Try to put your hands more on the bar here. But yeah, you're just driving your chest on that first rep. I think it may just be the bar grip here. I think it's just really unstable on your back.
Mm-hmm.
It's rolling all over the place. If you can get your hands more on top of it, maybe widen out the grip a little bit, let it set down a little bit lower on your back, this will be probably a little bit easy for you. And then on the way up, drive both the chest and hips, kind of making your back angle constant the whole entire time is going to be key for you.
Yeah, you're going a little bit deep as well, so everything's getting loose at the bottom. But yeah, so like what I try to express to our boy here is like every rep is totally different. You're doing a different thing every time, right? Even if it's not correct, we want you to be doing the same thing every time, and then we can start making more technical improvements from there. Because it's like the gaze, for example, sometimes it's down, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's all the way up. Try and make everything as consistent as you can, starting with the bar position, like Chase was saying. I think the bar may be in the correct spot, but the problem is like you're hunching over so much at the bottom that it's just shooting up, and then another thing I think I said this was about the plate spin. Like if you look at the York letters on the plate, they're all over the place, man. They're rolling all over the place. You want to try to make that really smooth. But if you haven't been squatting for a long time, these aren't terrible squats. I think they should mature pretty well.
What I think maybe what's this guy's name again? Was it Kyle?
It was Kyle. I'm going to find another video, and then we can talk about Kyle, and then this question from our boy Nahom here.
So Kyle, I would put something down like 4 to 5 feet in front of you, like your hat, for example, like the jug of water that was by you. You need a physical object to actually stare at. You're kind of just losing your gaze in this little black sea of mat in front of you, and it's causing you to kind of just drift everywhere and being so hyper focused of what's happening on the bar, right?
Yeah.
Getting the gaze to fixated on one spot is really going to help on this situation.
Yeah, man. Rip's deadlifting article talking about like the mass of the head and how it changes balance around mobbed foot. Like once you read that as a novice coach, that's going to be like really revelatory for you. So if you're interested in the nerdy stuff behind this, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe that's why they're so anal about where people's head is. Because it's a huge portion of your body's mass. It's not as much as your torso is, but hey, it really counts. So when you're throwing the head all over the place, it's hard. Nahom's question here, he said, shoulder uneven and the barbell is tilted on my back. What drills to help with this? Nahom, make sure that you're not just setting up unevenly. So a lot of people, let's say they'll put their hands on the bar, but due to one shoulder being more or less flexible, they will go under the more flexible shoulder, and then they will end up askew or asymmetrical on the bar. That happens, and it's super common, right? It's incredibly common. If it's only like half an inch, I barely will even correct it because that person's probably been doing it for like 3 years. If I see an advanced lifter who's been doing it for a long time, they don't even notice, and they've been doing it. But yeah, so make sure, and this is why sometimes a mirror is helpful for these things because it's hard to see. But like when you're getting under it, have your buddy take a picture of your back, take a video of your back. Look in the mirror if there's a mirror in front of you. Physically see where the bar is. That's suspect number one. Chase, what do you think for follow-ups?
Yeah, I agree. Man, see about if you're not putting the bar a little bit too low. Go back and look at several articles, videos about low bar positioning. If you're trying to low bar, I hope you are. You should. But make sure that you're figuring out where the spine of your scapula is, right? So if you kind of trace where the little seam is on your shoulder here of your shirt, and just below that on the lateral aspect, lateral is out here. This little knob here is the spine of your scapula. Trace that in, right? And you kind of feel how it kind of disappear. Well, underneath that, there's a lot of sheath of muscle. That's where the bar needs to rest on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and then I kind of was thinking about this as you're talking. Figure out if it's small shit, right?
Yeah.
From grip, bar placement, stuff that you can easily fix. And then we'll get more paranoid and more worried. Well, maybe you have some scoliosis. Maybe you have a fucked up shoulder. We'll worry about that kind of last.
Yeah. So I would say that like you should be really worried about it if you get to lock out on one side of your body and then you haven't locked out the other side. Right.
Yeah.
So like if your like left knee and hip seem to be almost fully extended, but then the right side seems to lag, then you should really care about it. But if you are hitting lockout at the same time, but it is just permanently slightly tilted, it's really not the end of the world. If you're trying to squat 800 pounds, you'll need to correct it at some point. But if you're just training just to train, it's not super important. It's kind of like the leg length discrepancy. Like if it is not painful and you've never noticed it before, that's fine. Keep not noticing it.
You'll probably be fine.
Exactly. But yeah, man. So that email that we sent at the beginning of the show, it's down in the description too. Send us a video or send it in through the app. All right. So we have our boy, Mr. Pembroke, M. Pembroke here. He is doing some squids. We have some other lifts from him too, so we'll see all of them.
I'm about to say, have we seen this guy before? The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, we've seen some Pembroke videos. Not in this gym, I don't think. This is a new one.
Yeah.
Our man's got some big calves.
Yeah, he does. This guy's really flexible too.
Mm-hmm.
Able to really set his low back, man.
One of the brotherhood. Yeah.
Pembroke, man, you are kind of into the realm of overextension here. Be real easy with that because, again, as you get heavier, you're going to overarch it and you're going to tweak it. It's going to hurt real bad. Squeeze your abs against the belt. Maybe even wear the belt just a tiny bit looser. And think about dropping your balls and your butt straight in between your heels. You're shooting back and you're kind of reaching back with the hips as you reach the bottom. Put the knees into it, right? Kind of feel it in the quads, go straight down.
Yeah, man, I would say drop everything right between your heels. Like one of the problems with the overextended position, it's very similar to an overly flexed position, is that it's hard to make them really consistent, right? If they're not as identifiable. And then they seem to be a little bit weaker, right? And there's probably some spinal mechanic arguments that you can make about like the angle of change in between each joint being a little bit too severe for ideal force transmission. We want it to be like as vertical a column as we can, probably some voodoo like that. But what I would say in reality is like, if you are focusing on extension that much in your squat, you probably aren't focusing on moving the bar faster, which is what you should be doing. And it could be you've never thought about lower back extension before, and that's just who you are, and that's great. Keep going. But I would say get the knees forward earlier, drop everything down, like Chase was saying. Yeah, and then just do a shit ton of calf raises, man. See how big these things can get.
Yeah, man, you have a calf tattoo, so it needs to be way bigger.
Exactly. Just stretch that out, and then have to pay thousands of dollars to fix it. Yeah. We got some more from Pembroke here too. We got a bench. So what did he have on that squat, by the way? That was sub 225 on the squat, I believe.
If that was, it looked like 220 or so.
Okay, 220. Gotcha. And we got our boy benching 140 here. How do you feel about this grip width, Chase?
It's too wide.
Yep.
I think. Yep. You can kind of tell by the elbow kind of just moving all over the place as he gets more and more into the set. It's unstable. The forearms need to be vertical whenever the bar touches you. A good kind of descriptor to help this, because again, it's going to be hard to tell if your forearms are vertical whenever you have the bar on your chest, but a thumb length or one hand width wider than where your press grip is. Everything else, though, looks remotely fine. Just a little bit more leg drive as you start the bench.
Yeah, I'd probably pull the feet back a little bit more if you can. We know you're flexible, so you can maintain that position just fine. But yeah, I would move the grip in. Maybe consider lowering the touch point a little bit, and then drive everything back. But these are like a warm up set for you, man. So keep adding weight. Hopefully he's had a few more pounds on here. And then who is this guy? What is this one? Millen Chicks. I don't think we've seen this one before, right, Chase? This is new. This is new. This is new.
I remember someone had this weird, goofy angle too.
Yeah, I think it was someone else with this same angle, but this guy has way more weight on the bar. So
yeah.
Yeah, I want to work on knee position a little bit. I think it would
Hmm.
help you get faster on the descent. One thing I've noticed is like even if like if you're assuming that letting your knees come in is still fine, I would say that it's still slowing your descent down more than it needs to. Because what we're noticing here is that like the knees are still out to the side, your descent speed is pretty consistent. As soon as the knees come in, you slow down.
Hmm.
And a lot of that's physically just because like your belly's touching your thigh, you're a little bit more unsure about where your knees are in space. I would say if you shove the knees out harder, you'll be able to drop down a little bit faster, get more of a bounce.
Yeah, and you kind of see this on this guy's stance. Like
Yeah,
I'm sure he's really flat-footed, or he has a little bit of a collapsed arch.
because
So
yeah,
you're gonna have to really think about keeping the weight on the outside of the feet and just making a huge gap in between your legs at all times.
hmm
Not only on the way down, but on the way up as well.
yeah. We want you to think about like sitting in between your legs, basically.
Hmm.
Like you're trying to open that space up so your torso can drop down in between. I would also pull the head back a little bit. I think you're getting a little bit head forward here. I would try to think about pulling your head back over your shoulder, kind of displaying your chest a little bit more, kind of forcing yourself into more thoracic extension. But these are what? So 365, 75, something like that. So that's pretty solid squat, man. How tall do you think this guy is? And how much do you think he weighs, Chase?
Mm, I bet he's
This
about
angle's always hard.
yeah, I know. I bet he's about 6 foot, maybe 5'11", um, like 180,
CO, you think he's only one? Okay.
185.
Okay, gotcha. I think he's heavier than that. I'm interested to see I have no idea how tall this guy is, but he's pretty much
I
big
don't
on
know.
the
It's
ramp.
the angle, man. It just
That's a
fucks you
hard
up.
angle because it's even at a deficit. He's on the platform too.
He's probably like 6'7",
Yeah,
398.
6'7". Yeah, amazing. So there was, and we have one more from Pembroke here too. He's doing some cleans. Oh, hold on. I did not share this one with the gang. We'll find out. There it is. Okay, all right, cool. We have our boy Pembroke here again. He's doing something. Up. Okay, Chase. Interested to hear your opinion on this
Mhm.
one.
All right, so Pembroke, notice where you just landed. Like that was like a foot behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what you're doing is you're pulling around the knees majorly. So there is a huge arc in the bar path. That one was actually a little bit better, but you're going to have to think about keeping your shoulders out and over the bar for as long as possible and basically stay leaned over as you jump. And at the last moment, carry your shoulders all the way up. Make the bar kind of brush the shirt, stay in a vertical path.
Yeah, I think we missed a lot of thigh contact here
Yeah.
as well. So like one thing I've noticed about people who tend to jump backwards, so it's like his feet are here. We'll watch him jump back. Yeah, he's moved back basically almost
That's
half a
right.
foot length in
Yeah.
relationship to that. When you're jumping backwards, it's really hard to get that nice thigh bash, that thigh contact so basically we can use that as a proxy for knowing that like the double knee bend has happened, right? So if the knees have gotten back under the bar, that means the bar is going to get in contact with your thigh. If it during the entire motion, basically the bar floats past your thigh, you may end up jumping backwards, or you're just kind of missing all of that extra force production that you could get from the double knee bend. But yeah, so I would focus on trying to slam your thighs into it, and then everything that Chase said. Um, do you think these were a little bit too heavy for good technique for him, or do you think it's just technique only?
Man, it's still slow enough. He's not really accelerating that much. I
Yeah,
think it's his technique.
yeah,
Um,
okay.
yeah, I think he's just been kind of learning from videos or some jackass has been coaching him how to power clean wrong.
Hopefully not. I think he's doing pretty starting strength for most
Yeah.
things. Pretty hard here, so I think he's in a good spot. But yeah, man, I would focus on thigh contact. Really try to move that thing a little bit faster. One thing that you'll notice is like when a weight is too heavy for them to even display good technique, it will slow down before the jump position a little bit too much.
Hmm.
And then it'll just kind of get to their belly and then they'll stop. But this thing's still flying up to his collarbones.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, I wouldn't add any more weight to this. I'd stop or maybe even take just a tiny bit off to kind of work
yeah,
on this. But
take some chips
uh,
off.
yeah, but you're fine for the
Yeah.
most part weight wise. But you got to talk about
Hmm.
or fix the cues that we mentioned.
Exactly. Yeah. How are your power cleans been going, man? I haven't seen your power cleans in a minute.
They're kind of shit, man. For some reason, like I need to shrug more and I need to get all the extension. Like I can extend my hips and knees totally fine. It's just I lack kind of the shrugs at the top, even though I've been trying to cue it. and I powered 135 the other day, but then as I went further into my singles, I did about 5 singles. I got lower and lower, so it's like, fuck, there really weren't really powers anymore.
That's kilos, by the way, folks.
Yeah.
FYI.
It's still pounds. It's 135.
135. Yeah, he's working on it, man. Have we seen these before, Chase?
I haven't seen this guy.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah, he's very color coordinated. The whole thing. And we have 315 on the bar.
This guy's like all legs too. It's awesome.
He is all legs for sure. He's in the long leg gang. This is what we're talking about when we're saying, like, for some people, their torso angle is basically straight parallel to the ground.
This dude's almost, yeah.
Because like you'll see like the upper back musculature kind of making it seem as if it's inclined, but if you were to like make a point between the point of articulation, the glenoid and his scapula, and then like his pelvis, they would be right next to each other. They would not be tilted up at all, you know. Okay, that got pretty slow. Yeah. This is the rep we should be looking at for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think, man, you're just getting back on your heels and you're trying to basically reduce the moment arm that's on your back. Like you're kind of in a shitty position already because of how leaned over you are. Kick out your toes a little bit, kind of get into like a more frog stance.
Mm-hmm.
Your angle on your toes is like straight ahead. So it's going to make you keep your knees a little bit more forward. And it's going to be real hard and more of an effort for you to extend the knees. Help yourself out as best you can by getting those things out. Get a real nice angle to your toes and just squeeze the hell out of your lats and keep the bar on your legs.
Yeah, I would really try to think about keeping your shoulder blades right on top of the bar. On some of your later setup, you are like way past it as you're getting set up. You know, I think the hips may be a little bit too high even. So, you know, like if we look at like the shin angle on this one, you know, so like shin angle, it's pretty inclined, right? And then if we'll pop to your later rep, that's off the floor. Let's see. I could be totally wrong. We'll find out. Is this a shaky one? It is. Whoop, right there. I think that shin angle is more vertical, or it seems more vertical to me. What do you think, Chase?
I'd say it's about the same. I say he's probably actually a little bit on his toes, and that's why he rocked back a little bit.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. That's an interesting one.
Kind of see that.
We'll see how it moves. Let's go. Yeah, he gets really on his heels basically around right here. So probably forward and midfoot at some point. I wonder if he's doing everything really, really right, but these are just damn heavy.
I'd still like to see his toes out a little bit more, and that's gonna again help reduce the leg length on him.
Would you move his heels in, or would you just put the toes out?
Probably just put the toes out. His heels are already pretty close.
Yeah, toes out, knees out, real hard. Yeah, the first rep here, I would say textbook, really A+ on rep 1.
Yeah, looked pretty good.
Yeah, consider dropping reps down and doing a few more sets.
Yeah, you may just also be in the realm where you need to be a 2x3 at this time, not really pushing 5s.
Yeah, probably a pretty advanced lifter at this point, if I had to bet, or for your age group. All right, so we'll find some more here. We got a question, Peter. What cues are helpful for squats that have too vertical of a shin angle? Okay, so that's the hips way behind you sort of squat. That's very leaned over. Too vertical of a shin angle is a very heel loaded squatter, is what that is. Chase, how do you like to work your way out of that situation while I queue up another video?
One of kind of the more abstract ways to do this is kind of make the dude almost think of it as a front squat, right? Get his knees really far forward, put his knees like 3 feet in front of his toes, somewhere along those lines to make the shin angle more horizontal in a sense, right? Getting his quads involved, because what he's doing is he's sitting back way too much. He's the guy who's really been listening to Ripito about leaning over and sitting back into the hips.
Sitting back,
he fucking nailed it. He has A++ all the way around. Now we got to get the knees and the quads involved.
Yeah, I always tell people, if you think that, like, so let's say, Peter, you're coaching someone else and this is their problem, just get them to do it somehow and then give that as a point of reference, right? So even if you're in your warm-ups, you just have them do like a goblet squat where their knees are really far forward, or a front squat, or let's say at the bottom of their power clean even, if they can do a full clean, they'll know what a knees forward position is. Give them some example of that, like Chase was saying, and then they can latch onto it, because I'm like, okay, I've been there before. I remember what that's like. That's a really good place to start. But what I'll always do is that if I'm coaching someone in person, is that I will give them a physical target for their knees. So that's what the tubo is if you're self-coaching, or you can just put your hand there, put your knee there, something like that. Give them that physical target for their knees to get in. Um, you know, uh, Other than that, I want to honestly say you don't have terribly many options. I
No.
think tactile cueing is really the way to go, because it's very possible they think their knees are forward, and they just
Yeah.
really don't know. That problem seems to be more of a proprioceptive one than I think like a conceptual understanding. Um, and also, heeled shoes. I have a good bit of lifters who just have like really bad dorsiflexion of their ankles. They may have just super stiff ankles, and then it's just not moving forward very much. So they'll be like, "Hey, I'm feeling a stretch at my ankle, but their shin is only inclined, 15 degrees, right?" So for them, they may want like a Reebok Legacy for a shoe. They may want something a little bit bigger. So we're past the hour mark. Hold on. We'll get out of here. We got one more question, then we'll wrap it up for the day. Theodore, he says, to talking with the mates during your rest times make the workout longer actually affect progress, or is it just convenience? Convenient for what?
Yeah, I don't
Um,
understand the last part.
yeah, so they've done a lot of exercise science research in regards to mental stress for athletic performance. So, like, if you give someone like a hard Sudoku puzzle or you yell at them in between their sets, they're generally going to do a little bit worse. If you socially isolate people, if they're normally in a group of people, then you take them away. Sometimes things can be a little bit harder. But I would say more or less that depends on what you typically do. So, if you're always talking to your friends and always having a good time, and then all of a sudden you switch out of the blue, that will probably be a little bit harder. But I would say over the months and years, it's who's doing more work wins.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any
Yeah,
other thoughts?
those small factors are so minuscule, like they may change, a point or a small little deviation to where it doesn't matter, right? Like fuck, more about what you ate that day will probably have a bigger overall
Yeah,
change than
yeah,
what's happening, like small shit happening like this.
yeah. Did you get 7 hours of sleep or 8?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
yeah. Those are kind of the big things that I think you should be focusing on. But yeah, okay, that wraps it up for the hour. Parting shots. Anything else you want to mention, Chase?
No, man.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Okay, we're going to be doing this again next Sunday. It was good to have people in the chat this time now that the chat's working again. So pop in next Sunday, shit post with us. Chase does online coaching. I do online coaching too. Reach out to us, let us know. But thank you all very much for watching.
See you guys.
Bye.